The most important step in any recipe that you make is measuring the ingredients properly. Baking is not very forgiving, it's a science, and even the slightest mismeasure could spell recipe disaster. So I'm going to show you the proper way to measure the most common baking ingredients. Let's start with flour. It's actually the most common mismeasured ingredient. Packing the flour into a measuring cup could actually result in up to 50% more flour than a recipe calls for. Instead, spoon the flour into the measuring cup and level off any excess with a knife. If a recipe calls for quick oats and you only have whole oats, I have a quick trick that will help. Pulse whole oats in a food processor for about 3 seconds until they're fine and powdery. They'll be perfect to use in your recipe that call for quick oats. Baking powder and baking soda can clump up in their containers, so I recommend fluffing them up with a measuring spoon or giving them a quick shake. They can expire, so make sure they're fresh. Then scoop the measurement you need and level it off with a knife. Remember that there's a difference between baking powder and baking soda, so it's important to use the one that the recipe calls for. Granulated sugar is a little more forgiving than flour. You can just scoop it out of the container with a measuring cup and level it off with a knife. Unless otherwise stated, use packed brown sugar in your recipe. We'll measure it the same exact way we do white granulated sugar. Scoop it out of the container and level it off with a knife. Confectioner's sugar, icing sugar, and powdered sugar are all the same. 1 cup of sifted confectioner's sugar means that you sift the confectioner's sugar before measuring. 1 cup of confectioner's sugar, sifted, means that you sift the confectioner's sugar after measuring. Whether you sift the confectioner's sugar or not, it's best to spoon and level it into your measuring cup just as we do with flour. Cocoa powder can clump up in the container, so make sure you fluff it up with a spoon before measuring. If a recipe calls for sifting cocoa powder, make sure you take that extra step to do so. To measure cocoa powder, we'll spoon and level it just as we do confectioner's sugar and flour. Liquid ingredients should be measured in a liquid measuring cup. Semi-liquid ingredients and dry ingredients should be measured in a dry measuring cup. To measure semi-liquid ingredients like peanut butter, applesauce, or yogurt, simply spoon into a dry measuring cup. Use a spatula when adding to the mixing bowl. For add-ins such as chocolate chips, nuts, or dried fruits, simply scoop into a dry measuring cup. Liquid sweeteners like honey, maple syrup, and molasses are extra sticky. So my trick is to lightly spray the measuring cup with non-stick spray before measuring. So when it's time to add to your mixing bowl, it pours right out. Other liquids in a recipe like milk, water, or oil should be measured in a liquid measuring cup. Always view at eye level to make sure you have the proper measurement. One of the most consistent ways to measure ingredients is to use a food scale. A cup isn't always a cup, but a gram or ounce are always a gram or ounce. If you've never used a kitchen scale before, I have a quick list of common baking conversions on my website. Before using your kitchen scale, make sure that it's set to the correct form of measurement, either ounces or grams. Place your mixing bowl or measuring cup on top and just make sure you zero it out before adding the ingredient. It may seem like a lot, but these measuring tips will make a big difference in your next recipe.